All right. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for coming. We are so excited to get a chance to share what we've been working on all year for you guys. But first, some introductions. My name is Mary. Also on the call is Megan, Mickey, and Rohan, and we are lucky to be advised by Professor Hassani. We call ourselves Viral.
Thanks, Mary. So first, I'm just going to speak briefly about our motivation behind, why we chose to work on what we did. So we were all four of us were uniquely fascinated by how rapidly content moves, in various forms of networks today, whether that be online forums, other internet channels, social networks, or even just old-fashioned person-to-person in communities, right? Friends, coworkers, family, and we also were very interested in how technology was both enabling this communication as well as facilitating the spread of different information. And so our guiding question was very vaguely, how do some pieces of content travel through networks and why are some better than others? Why do some go viral when others don't? What makes this video better than that video, this picture better than that picture, so on and so forth. And we wanted to understand, can we really get at the root of what makes content viral and what use cases does this have? And so we essentially boiled it down to, on the Twitter network, what makes pieces of content viral and how can we help brands promote themselves with what we're able to discover about how things go viral.
As Rohan said, we are really interested specifically in Twitter, and we thought that brand Twitter, also known as corporate Twitter, was one of the most interesting use cases for a final product. And this is because brands try really hard to go viral on Twitter. As you can see some of the examples on the screen, they employ techniques such as copying relevant memes like the little handshake guy. They reply to each other. They also reply to just random people on Twitter, all with the intent of going viral. And it's a thing that's pretty successful for them. I see a lot of articles all the time about, the 10 spiciest corporate Twitters and things like that. But what's really interesting is that it wasn't always like this. Back when brands started to do this, particularly, I remember the word BAE, which stands for before anyone else. Brands would use that in tweets and people hated it. They thought that the brands didn't really understand what the words meant. They thought it was cringy. So it's been really interesting to see the evolution from people hating it to people liking it, especially because these Twitters are controlled by teams and teams of marketing people who try really hard to sound like some 20-year-old intern who's just doing this for fun. That's kind of the persona they adopt. So we wanted to design a product that would help these corporations and their marketing departments sound like everyone else on Twitter, sound like your cool cousin or that one person who's famous, while remaining true to their brands and while promoting their products. So to give a little bit more details, here's Megan.
Thanks, Mary. Like Mary just was talking about, our product aims to generate viral content with an innovative solution of combining natural language processing and also utilizing Twitter users' underlying graph network. And so the functionality of our product depends on the following three components. The first of which would be using the graph architecture of Twitter. So the structure of following and follower relationships for a particular customer using our services, as well as the proximity of other Twitter users to a particular customer. The second of which is the actual tweet history from a user. So we're training natural language processing models on the history of a user's tweets in order to learn their tweet style, their typical vocabulary, how their sentences are structured, so that the end product sounds like something that our user would tweet by themselves. And then the last component would be the users can customize what the tweet generations are about by inputting a phrase such as a trending topic or a hashtag that they would like to tweet about.
So, what does this actually look like to our customers? Essentially, suppose you're on the marketing team of Wendy's, or suppose you're Elon Musk in this example. You would essentially be using our website, our web application. You come in and you enter your Twitter handle, And immediately our product gets to work crawling your Twitter network and essentially finding out, okay, what have you said on Twitter in the past? Who are those that follow you? What are they about? What are their, Twitter activities, and what's going on in the Twitter sphere and, the world at the time? And then we're able to train a model on all of this data that will be able to output different predictions and suggestions for tweets that you should do. So once the model is trained, we'll prompt you to enter some sort of, a starting point essentially. So suppose you're Elon Musk, and in this case, you wanted to tweet something about your dreams. So you start off with the prompt, "My dream is." Our product will spit out a list of maybe a dozen tweets that are curated to sound like you, as well as disseminate quickly and popularly through your specific network. And this, these dozen tweets are the top dozen after, about a few hundred have been generated and tested against your prior tweets. And then it's up to you as the customer to decide, which ones you want to use, modify, and then eventually tweet.
Yeah, so now I'll talk a bit about how we actually train a model for a particular user. First, we go ahead and scrape the user's publicly available tweets and crawl their local Twitter network. In order to do this, we use the Tweepy API in order to interface with the Twitter platform and store various bits of information in Amazon RDS, which is a relational data store, as well as Amazon S3, which is a file storage service. Next, we fine-tune a GPT-2 model based on this user. In order to do this, we use PyTorch Lightning, as well as the Hugging Face Transformers library. I'll talk on the next slide a bit about what GPT-2 and transformers actually are. Next, we use tweets that have been spread around this user's particular local subnetwork to further update the model and optimize it to output tweets that will rapidly spread across their local subnetwork. Finally, we use this model to generate tweets. One interesting thing to note is that our model can actually adapt over time. Let's say Netflix releases a new show or Wendy's releases a new food product. Our model can detect that Netflix or Wendy's is tweeting about different things and then update its model parameters to sort of be in line with the newest trends for these particular users. Transformers are a very recent advancement in the area of natural language processing as of about 2018. Essentially, they're really large neural network architectures that get a very general understanding of the English language. They're trained by large companies such as Google, Facebook, or OpenAI. OpenAI is the company that actually trained GPT-2. And like I said, they have a very general understanding of the English language. They're very general purpose models that can be fine-tuned for a variety of different language tasks. In our case, we're very interested in language generation. Essentially, so essentially, we're able to take the data that we crawled and then fine-tune this model to effectively emulate this user's Twitter usage and thus tweet tweets that sound like this particular user. You'll see some examples of this on the next slide.
Great. Thanks, Mickey. And so now you're probably wondering, how exactly does it work, and does it actually work? So I can run through a few quantitative specs that we have been able to achieve with our product. So right now, in terms of scale, our product is able to serve 20,000 simultaneous brands or authenticated users. So anything from Hot Pockets to Elon Musk, we're able to support 20,000 different people on our platform, as well as we're able to limit storage complexity down to 2 gigabytes per user. And this is everything from the trained model to the Twitter data that we use to train the model on. We're also down to less than 30 minutes between registration time and tweet generation. To explain why 30 minutes, and it might seem like a lot, it's because Twitter itself has some rules about how fast you're able to crawl along its network. And so, when a customer first signs up for our platform, this initial crawling might take a little bit longer, but that's essentially a one-time fixed cost. And after that, you're able to use the product multiple times over and over again with minimal adjustments, as Mickey had mentioned. And then finally, we have a perplexity score that helps us analyze how great and how closely our tweets are to what the brand has been tweeting out in the past. And so a perplexity score of 20 is relatively low, which indicates that the tweets that we're generating for brands, be it Pop-Tarts or Wendy's, are in fact very similar in terms of style, diction, as well as function for what they had been tweeting in the past. Of course, ours are then optimized for disseminating across their network. And to run you through some examples that we've done in the past with these specific brands that you see on the screen, you'll notice that Pop-Tarts, tweeting Pop-Tarts are going to be here soon, honey, is a very likely and very poignant tweet for Pop-Tarts as they for example would advertise a new product launch. Or Hot Pockets promoting their brand, saying a Hot Pocket is the next best thing right out of the box, is also a very simple but essentially very designed tweet to spread quickly amongst Hot Pocket followers.
Right, and now I will discuss some of the potential ethical concerns for our model and our design strategies to mitigate those ethical concerns as much as possible. Two of the biggest, most obvious ones that we were facing with our product is its potential impacts on the Twitter environment with generating fake news and hate speech. And we really, really wanted to ensure that the design principles of our tweet generator are adhering to the current ethical industry standards. And some of the mitigation strategies that we did so when constructing our models is first allowing or making sure that users are agreeing to a set of terms and conditions that we lay out for them on our website. And these basically are saying that the user is responsible for all of the repercussions of posting any of the suggested tweets that are generated by our model. We are not automatically tweeting for our customers, and that is a choice that we made, a design choice, because we really wanted to make sure that users know that they are responsible for using their discretion in adhering to Twitter's community guidelines for publishing content. So, no intentional misinformation, threats of violence, any hateful conduct or other sensitive content. As well as our data scraper is filtering out any sensitive content that's flagged on Twitter, so that our training data sets for our natural language processing model are not training on this specific content. This is also kind of what we're doing in terms of our actual crawler. Certain words are blacklisted in our crawler that are related to hate speech. All of these design considerations are not exhaustive, and we really want to stress that our product will keep up to date with ethical and data privacy standards as it undergoes further development. Some of the next steps that we are thinking about taking as we continue to iterate on our product design are blacklisting words that customers put in for tweet generation. So from the user end, safety proofing it and making sure that they're not tweeting anything that could potentially have some sensitive generated tweets, as well as ensuring some socially aware algorithmic design, similar to Aaron Roth and Michael Carn's The Ethical Algorithm that has been discussed in Penn's discourse on ethical algorithms. And now I'll pass it off to discuss some of the potential business ventures.
Because we wouldn't be at Penn if we weren't talking about entrepreneurship and the potential startup opportunities. So I just kind of want to dip our toes in a little bit to talking about our business plan, but starting with the costs. As you can see, there aren't a lot of them. We pretty much are going to pay to host the website, and then the AWS. The AWS charges do seem a little bit high, but that actually isn't for storage. It's a lot for the computation. So we hope to find ways to decrease that in the future. But when we think about, that as our cost per user for these huge multinational corporations, it's not actually that large. And that brings us over to our revenue opportunities. We have a few different models that we are considering. We would start out with implementing a subscription-based service. So for perhaps $20 a month, a little bit less if you pay annually, you have complete access to the product. We'll be pushing updates, we'll help people work through bugs. Additionally, then we want to introduce a pro account, and the pro account has some of the features that we are really excited to work on and implement, but couldn't quite fit in 1 year. One of that is increased customization. For example, filtering out words during the crawling process or when we take your Twitter history. For example, a lot of the times, and you'll see in the demo, we generate things that say like, check your DMs, because a lot of these corporations also use their Twitters to kind of respond to customer service complaints. And they do that by saying, check your DMs. So it shows up a lot. So we want to add the feature to remove phrases like that. And additionally, have a little bit more control over the tweets that are outputted so that you don't have to come up with a prompt to start the tweet, but that is just incorporated anywhere within the tweet. Those are the things that we would be working on next. But our ultimate goal would be to sell this as a packaged product and sell it business to business. So, like a Tableau, we would go around to other companies and say, this is going to help your marketing department. We will help you install it. We will work with you to make sure it's being utilized correctly, and you will have full ownership over it. So that's kind of just a little bit of the entrepreneurship we've talked about. And now we have talked about it for so much, it is time to finally watch our demo. Let me know if audio works.
So I'll be demoing our system for you today. First things first, let's look at the terms and conditions for each. Our terms and conditions essentially outline the privacy and sensitivity concerns that users may have when using services. This first bullet point addresses the fact that we don't condone using our tweet generator to generate any harmful content. Secondly, in the second bullet point, we state that our service doesn't gather any private information about users who use our service. Rather, we just use publicly available data on the Twitter platform. Finally, in this third bullet point, we state that users are ultimately responsible for what they choose to tweet. Our system doesn't directly tweet for them, but rather they can use our service essentially as an idea generation platform and use our service to generate tweets that they themselves have to filter out and ultimately tweet on their account. Great. So let's take a look at how someone would use our service. Our service is implemented as a React application in the front end, with the Flask application serving our model's requests in the back end. So a user can enter their own Twitter handle to this text box right here and click train model. If a model has already been trained, it'll simply load this previously trained model. For example, we can see Netflix here. The user can simply enter a starting prompt for the tweets that they'd like to generate. For example, we'll say, you should watch Netflix. From here, we'll use the model that was trained on Netflix's past tweets in order to generate new tweets. Great. So you can see here that this you should watch prompt has generated many tweets that are actually very relevant to Netflix, referencing many Netflix shows, because this is what has appeared in some of their past tweets. But these are all novel tweets in that these, of course, don't directly show up on Netflix's Twitter account, but rather we're generating new tweets. You can see many references here like Queen's Gambit, Stranger Things, The Witcher 2, etc. Let's take a look at another account. Let's see. Again, since model training can take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes on the first time that we train a model, for the purposes of this demo, of course, I'll be using models that we've already trained. Cool. So for the Wendy's account, I might enter a prompt like today for lunch and see what we do there. Interesting.
So today for lunch, I'm eating my honey butter chicken biscuit. Breakfast is tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, so get there early. Today for lunch, baconator, egg and cheese, and a sandwich. For lunch, butter chicken nuggets, omelet, and out the proper chicken. So you can see that our models are able to pick up on specific entities that that particular user may reference in their tweets. So yeah, we see heavy business potential in being able to generate social media content that is optimized to go viral in a particular user's network. Yeah, so that's all for the demo today. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, so that was our demo. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Hey, everyone. So
I always do that. I always do that again. I feel like the slides are a little bit messed up now, but hopefully that's okay. As you can see, not every tweet is great, but it does a really good job at mentioning specific products. And it also does a really good job at mentioning other companies or other things that they tag a lot. So with that, that ends our presentation. Please let us know if you have any other questions. We have so much we can fit into this presentation that's sitting in an appendix, so ask us anything.